Hello and welcome to today's exploring session. Today we are looking at Henry IV Part 1, and this is Part 2 of our exploration of Part 1. We're going to be looking at Part 1 across 4 exploring sessions. This is creating something of a headache for how I label this on YouTube. But this is, as I say, Edward IV, almost certainly by Thomas Heywood. I don't think there are anybody else down as a probable author, though of course you never know, as it's not probably attested within its own time. As I say, this is Edward IV Part 1. We are looking today at scenes 9 through to 13. So far we've met Edward IV, and then we sort of left him behind a long time ago, where Edward IV got married to the wrong person as far as his mother and much of the royal court is concerned, and that's probably going to cause all sorts of problems down the line. But at the moment, he's got a rebellion on his hands. The bastard Falconbridge, in more ways than one, is rebelling and is trying at the moment to get into London. He's been repulsed once by the good apprentices of London. Vaguely thought to rehearse that earlier. That clearly I wasn't clear on that instruction. Okay, so the apprentices of London have beaten them back once, and they're going to probably try again. And we're about to find out what happens in this second quarter of the play. To discover a little bit more, we have assembled this team, many of whom are here yesterday, but some who are new to the text. So reading today, the bastard Falconbridge is...
Hi, I'm Greg and I'm from Stratford-upon-Avon.
Reading King Edward today is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good, I'm a historian and I'm in Yorkshire.
Reading today Spicing and Cylindra is...
Hello, my name's Francis Cox, I'm an actor living in Amsterdam.
Reading Chub and Howard today is...
Hello, my name is Lynn Freitas. I'm a writing teacher. I live in the Northwestern United States.
Reading the Lord Mayor, valiantly defending the city there, Lord Mayor and second Huntsman is...
Hi, I'm Eric and I'm here.
Yes.
And reading Recorder and Duchess is...
Hello, I'm Lois, a retired academic living in London.
Reading Shaw, Master Shaw, and first Huntsman is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Reading Master Josselyn and Queen Elizabeth is...
Wait, did you say Queen Elizabeth too? I missed that bit.
Queen Elizabeth, yes, you're also Queen Elizabeth.
Amazing. Hi, yeah. I'm Tamara, I'm an actor, and I didn't know I was here.
Didn't know you were here, or at least you didn't know that you were a royal personage. Just to point out, we're not talking about Queen Elizabeth II. You are Queen Elizabeth as well as Master Josselyn. And finally, if his emergency phone call it allows him to speak, reading Miller and Hobs is...
Hello, my name's Andrew Alton-Read. I'm an actor, and I'm based in Chelmsford in Essex.
Yes, sometimes with these exploring sessions, real life comes hurtling at you at great waves. We occasionally will have intercessions of dogs and all real life, and occasional cats. We're always looking forward for the possible appearance of Sammy. And there's Scooter there, making a positively first appearance, probably not the last. Nobody here cares about the play, really. We're just here to look at the dog being cute. Okay. It's going to be one of those sessions. Without further ado, we are going to leap into scene 9 of the play. We've just left Master Shaw and his wife Jane. Shaw is off to look at sorting out this second wave of rebellion. And this is a relatively long scene. I think we're going to let it run its course so that everyone gets back into the groove. So here we have the entrance of Falconbridge with his troops. They're marching as though they are at Mile End.
Yet stand we in the sight of upreared Troy, and suck the air she draws. Our very breath flies from our nostrils warm onto the walls. We beard her bristling spires, her battled towers, and proudly stand and gaze her in the face. Look on me, and I doubt not ye imagine my worth as great as any of yours. My fortunes, would I basely fawn on Edward, to be as fair as any man's in England. But he that keeps your sovereign in the Tower have seized my land and robbed me of my right. I am a gentleman as well as he. What he has got, he holds by tyranny. Now, if you faint or cowardly fly, there is no hope for anyone to live. We hear the Londoners will leave the city and bid us battle here on Mile End Green, whom if we vanquish, then we take the town, and ride in triumph through cheap to Paul's. The mint is ours, cheap Lombard Street our own, the meanest soldier wealthier than a king.
Much fare ye rogues, all kings, all cap knitters. Dost thou hear, Tom Falconbridge? I prithee grant thee one boon I shall ask thee.
What is it, Ned? It's hard I should deny thee.
Why, that when we have won the city, as we cannot choose but win it, that I may have the knighting of all these rogues and rascals.
What then?
What then? Zounds, I scorn your scurvy wry mouth. What then? Now a pox take me if I fight a blow.
Why, this is fine. Go to, knight whom thou wilt.
Who? I knight any of them? I'll see them hanged first for a company of tattered, ragged rascals. If I were a king, I would not knight one of them.
What, not me, Cavallero Chub?
Yes, I care not if I knight thee, and yet I'll see thee hanged ere I'll honour thee so much. I care not so much for the matter, but I would not be denied my humour.
Why, what a perverse fellow art thou, Ned?
Ho, my fine Tom, my brave Falconbridge, my mad Greek, my lusty Neville, thou art a king, a Caesar, a plague on thee. I love thee not, and yet I'll die with thee.
Enter the Lord Mayor, Recorder Josselyn Shaw, and their soldiers marching. Lots of marching soldiers, people.
See how rebellion can exalt itself, pruning the feathers of sick discipline.
They think they can outlook our truer looks.
Mark but the scornful eye of Falconbridge.
I rather think 'tis fear upon his cheek, though Cypher's pale disturbance in his heart.
Our coming forth has, well, I say no more, but shall we take occasion and so forth? Rebellion should have no respite, O my lord. The time have been, but all is one for that.
How like a troop of rank o'er-ridden jades, you bushy-bearded citizens appear.
Nay, rather so many men in the moon, and everyone a furze bush in his mouth.
The 24 woods, now fair befall them. Would any one have thought before this hour there had been such an increase of muddy slaves?
Make peace, soldiers. They are resolute, you see, and not to flatter us nor favour them. Such haughty stomachs seldom have been seen embodied in the breasts of citizens. How sternly in their own peculiar strength, without the assistance of their lingering king, did they of late repulse us from their walls. And now, again, how expeditiously and unexpected have they met us here. Were we more deadly in sense than we are, I would not but commend their chivalry.
Captain, shall we go challenge them to a fight? Sblood, we burn daylight. They will think anon we are afraid to see their glittering swords.
Tell them they come instead of pudding pies and Stratford cakes to make a banquet here.
Soft. Give me leave. I would devise with words to weaken and abash their fortitude.
The bastard offers to come forth, my lord.
I am the man intends to answer him.
Crosby!
Traitor!
Traitor!
Down with him!
Be patient. Give me leave, I say, to speak. I doubt not, but the traitor's name shall rest with those that keep their lawful king in bonds. Meantime, Ye men of London, once again behold my warlike colours are displayed, which I have vowed shall never be wrapped up until your lofty buildings kiss our feet, unless you grant me passage through your streets.
Passage, sayest thou? That must be o'er our breasts, if any passage thou art like to have.
But why then upon your bodies will I tread a way through standing pools of your lost blood?
We know thy threats and reckon them as wind, not of sufficient power to shake a reed.
But we shook your gates not long ago and made your walls to shake like Irish bogs.
Aye, and so terrified ye that not one of ye durst come fetch a pint of sack at the mouth of Bishopsgate, no, not for your lives.
Aye, but you know what followed, and so forth.
Etc. Are you there? Methinks the sight of the dumbbell, the Neville's honoured crest, should make you leave your broken sentences and quite forget ever to speak at all.
Nay, then look thou upon our city's arms, wherein is a bloody dagger, that is it, wherewith a rebel like to Falconbridge had his desert meet for his treachery. Can you behold that, and not quake for fear?
Since when it is successively decreed, traitors with us shall never better speed.
Captain and fellow soldiers, talk no more, but draw your meaning forth in downright blows.
Sound then alarm.
Do the like for us, and where the right is, there attend success.
Stay and be better advised. Why, countrymen, what is this Falconbridge you follow so? I could instruct you, but you know my mind. And Falconbridge, what are these rusticals? They shouldst repose such confidence in glass. Shall I inform thee? No, thou art wise enough. Edward of York delays the time, you say. Therefore he will not come. Imagine so. The city's weak. Hold that opinion still. And you pretends King Henry's liberty. True. But as how? Shall I declare you? No. What then? You'll fight. A God's name, take your choice. I can no more but give you my advice.
Away with this parenthesis of words. Crosby, courage thy men, and on this green, whose cause is right, let it be quickly seen.
I am ready as soon as thou canst desire. On then, a God's name.
And they fight, fighting everyone, come on. And the rebels drive them back. Enter Falconbridge and Spicing.
This was well fought. Now, Spicing, list to me. The citizens thus, having given us ground, and therefore somewhat daunted, take a hand of Essex soldiers, and with all the speed thou possibly canst make, withdraw thyself and get between the city gates and them.
O brave Tom Neville, gallant Falconbridge, I aim at thy intended policy. This is thy meaning, while thou art employed, and holdst them battle here on Mile End Green. I must provide, as harbinger before, there be not only clear and open passage, but the best merchants' houses to receive us and our retinue. I am proud of that, and will not sleep upon thy just command.
Away then! I will follow as I may, and doubt not, but that ours will be the day.
And there's some excursions, so everyone sort of runs on and off stage for a bit. Off you go. Enter Lord Mayor and Shaw.
We have recovered what before we lost, and heaven stands with the justice of our cause. But this I noted in the fight even now, that part of this rebellious crew is sent. By what direction or what intent I cannot guess, but what may suspect the worst. And as it seems, they compass it about to hem us in, or get the gate of us. And therefore, cousin Shore, as I repose trust in thy valor and thy loyalty, draw forth 300 bowmen and some pikes, and presently encounter their assault.
I have your meaning and effects, my lord. I trust shall disappoint them of their hope.
And they exit after an alarum. I enter Spicing with a drum and certain soldiers.
Come on, my hearts, we will be kings tonight, carouse in gold and sleep with merchants' wives while their poor husbands lose their lives abroad. We are now quite behind our enemies' backs, and there's no let or hindrance in the way. but we may take possession of the town. And you mad rogues, this is the wished hour. Follow your leader and be resolute.
And as he marcheth, thinking to enter the shore, and his soldiers issue forth and repulse him. And there's some more excursions. Everyone wander on and off for a while, wherein the rebels are dispersed. Major fight scene there. Enter Mayor, Recorder, Shaw, Josselyn, and a messenger talking with the mayor.
I, my good friend, so certify his grace. The rebels are dispersed, all fled, and now his highness meets with victory.
And exit the messenger, who thankfully isn't given any lines.
Marshal yourselves and keep in good array to add more glory to this victory. The king in person cometh to this place. How great an honor have you gained today, and how much is this city famed forever, that twice, not without the help either of king or any but of God and our own selves, we have prevailed against our country's foes, thanks to his majesty assisted us, who always helps true subjects in their need.
And trumpet sound. And there enters King Edward. Haven't seen him for a while. King Edward, Lord Howard, Sellinger, and Train.
Where is my Lord Mayor?
Here, dread sovereign, I hold no lordship nor no dignity in presence of my gracious lord the king, but all I humble at your highness's feet with the most happy conquest of proud rebels, dispersed and fled, that now remains no doubt of ever making head to vex us more.
You have not ta'en the bastard Falconbridge, or is he slain?
Neither, my gracious lord, although we labored to our utmost, yet all our care came over short for apprehending him or spicing either. But some are taken, others on proffered grace yielded themselves, and at your mercy stand.
Thanks, good Lord Mayor. You may condemn us of too much slackness in such urgent need, but we assure you, on our royal word, so soon as we had gathered us a power, we dallied not, but made all haste we could. What order have you ta'en for Falconbridge and his confederates in this rebellion?
Under your leave, my liege, we have proclaimed who bringeth Falconbridge, alive or dead, shall be requited with 1,000 marks, as much for spicing. Others of less worth at easier rates are set.
Well have ye done, and we will see it paid from our exchequer. Now, leave we this, and come to you that have so well deserved in these affairs. Affairs, I mean, of so main consequence. Kneel down, and all of you receive in field the honour you have merited in field.
And draws his sword and knights them.
Arise, Sir John Crosby, Lord Mayor of London and Knight. Arise, Sir Ralph Josselyn, Knight. Arise, Sir Thomas Urswick, our Recorder of London and Knight. Now, tell me which is Master Shaw.
This same, my lord, and hand to hand he fought with Falconbridge.
Shaw, kneel down. What else call you his name?
His name is Matthew Shaw, my lord.
Shaw, why kneelst thou not? And at thy sovereign's hand receive thy right.
Pardon me, gracious lord. I do not stand contemptuous or despising such royal favour of my sovereign, but to acknowledge mine unworthiness. Far be it from the thought of Matthew Shaw that he should be advanced with aldermen, with our Lord Mayor and our right grave recorder. If anything hath been performed by me that may deserve your highness meanest respect, I have enough and desire no more. Then let me crave that I may have no more.
Well, be it as thou wilt. Some other way we will devise to quittance thy deserts, and not to fail therein, upon my word. Now tell me, all my friends at once. Now let me tell ye, all my friends at once, your king is married since you saw him last. And haste to help you in this thus needful time made me on a sudden to forsake my bride. But seeing all things are fallen out so well, and there remains no further doubt of ill, let me entreat you, you would go boot yourselves, and bring your king a little on his way. How say you, my lord? Shall it be so?
Now God forbid, but that my lord the king should always have his subjects at command.
Forbid, quotha. In good sadness, your majesty shall find us always ready, and so forth.
Why then, set forward, gentlemen, and come, Lord Mayor, I must confer with you.
And they exit, and that's the close of what is, I mean, we're calling that one scene, but it's sort of many scenes. We've got jump cuts in the middle of this scene, or sort of the early modern equivalent. You know, we one when the thing, and then we go back and forth, and it's really busy. We got intimations of the kind of fight scenes that we'll be having here. The expectation that Shaw should be fighting Falconbridge at some point. I don't think that's actually in the stage directions, but it's unless I missed it, but you know, it's suggested that happened, so that might be something that we see. But I think we should go to the room. There's so much to discuss here. Let's see who wants to leap in, because frankly, who wants to hear me speaking anymore? Away with this parenthesis of words. But that's one I've got to use in day-to-day life, isn't it, really? Josselyn's speech. Shall we start with Josselyn's speech to the rebels? Well done, that man. Well done. Good God. Ralph.
I really want to have another go at that as a monologue.
It is what the thing is. Once you sort of get into Josselyn and what Josselyn is doing, these stops and starts and what's going on, and I think it probably can be punctuated in a slightly more helpful way as well. You know, it looks when you read it on the page like it's a speech, but it's not. It's a series of dead
series
pauses.
of attempts. It's a series of attempts at speech.
Mm.
And I just I immediately had the thought, oh, I kind of need to do this as a monologue. Yeah, it a little bit. It reminds me of some politicians.
There were a few moments in this that reminded me of some politicians. We might get to that in a moment. Yeah, it's just great. Yeah, true, but as how? Shall I declare you? No. What then? Yeah, it's every one or two words is just a nugget of joy. Yeah, that's one for the future. I just absolutely love that. So yeah, we've got all these things going on. Shall we start with Falconbridge and Spicing and their relationship at the beginning of the scene of Spicing demanding things? You know, I want to be able to knight whoever I want, and so okay, what about him? Well, no, I don't want to knight him. You know, and don't refuse me this power, but I don't want to use it. Yeah. Yes, something has curdled since the last that argument we had last session. Thoughts on the room? Who wants to leap in? Helen.
I think the clue is in the text. He says it's to do with his humours. He's one of these humorous problem guys. I will do this, I will do that, and that's the humour of it. I think I hadn't spotted it, certainly, because this play, as you said last time, is so much later than the plays we've been doing recently. But we're getting into the comedy of humours period, I think, just at the beginning of it. And I think that's where Spicing is coming from. Sorry, I had my hand up before because I wanted to say something more about Josselyn.
Oh, go for it.
I think what we've got here is a portrait. I think there is some contemporary reference that the audience would have collected that we don't. And secondly, the way I see him is a man who has been, or probably still is, a rich, substantial alderman, but his brain has gone for some reason. And nevertheless, because of who he was, he is still tolerated and respected by the others there, who let him have a little say and then very gently draw him aside so as not to upset him.
It's interesting. I wasn't seeing him quite like that. I was just seeing, you know, that he, you know, it's just he's not very articulate. He's basically what I've just been doing just there. I'm just going, he's a bit, that it's not coming out. You know, in his mind, he's stood up and he's trying to make this great big heroic speech, and it's just not working. Rather than that, you know, it's more an external thing than an internal thing. He's just not very good at talking.
I think he's losing the track every time.
Francis.
Yeah, Josselyn almost seems like a character from Dickens to me. Yeah, that's like Mr. Dick in Copperfield or something like that.
He does feel like a pen portrait of maybe not a public figure, but just someone that the author has met. Because I think we've all met someone a bit like that. Maybe not to that degree. More on Josselyn or Falconbridge or spicing. It's that Falconbridge just saying "what then," and it's just spicing it. It doesn't matter what, you know. It doesn't matter why I want to do these things. Give me stuff. Lynn.
Yeah, spicing is a bit of a mystery to me. It would be really interesting to see a good actor try to make that character persuasive, because he doesn't seem to know what he wants, and his relationship to Falconbridge seems to be quite slippery, quite unstable. So what is his deal? Are we supposed to like him? Yeah, spicing was a little troubling to me, because I really couldn't pin him down.
Well, the way I saw spicing was that last time Falconbridge, you know, destroyed trust, and so spicing is here saying, "Give me this power," when we are here, and Falconbridge sort of says, "And what do you want this power for?" And he says, "Doesn't matter." And he's testing the boundaries between, because they've strained the relationship now. So I think spicing is now there is a really interesting dynamic going on between them that we prefigured last time. Lois and Eric.
Yeah, I think Helen's right that we're in the world of comedy of humors and characters who are distinguished by their speech mannerisms, and that's particularly clear with Josselyn. But you know, people have certain phrases they come out with, or certain tricks, like Spicing's determination to contradict everything anybody says to him. At least that's what he seems to be doing at the moment. And I think probably it's a way of characterization and you know, keeping these people apart, which is quite effective.
Eric.
I was going to say that it sounds a lot like the thing of, you know, if you're going to be in a party that's going to betray, you know, a figure of authority for any reason, you're going to end up like being betrayed, kind of like in the tragedy of the Jew of Malta, where, you know, we're like, why is Barnabas betraying so and so? And it's like, well, he's already betrayed everybody else, so why not? And it's like, it kind of feels like that, sort of like the beginning of that relationship, at least.
I think it functions on a solidly psychological approach of just simply that he doesn't actually want the power. He wants to be acknowledged that Falconbridge will give him things. You know, that their relationship is you know, is being tested, and he's testing it. He is being you know, a problem, and Falconbridge at this point should be noting that spicing is a problem for him, and I think that's really interesting. Helen.
If we're talking about the promiscuous granting of knighthoods, if this is 1599, we're thinking about Essex in Ireland.
Yeah,
possibly.
Well, isn't it interesting? Yeah, aren't these Londoners great? They all get knighted. You know, they've done great service. Aren't they fab? You know, the king turns up and knights everyone, and it's nice to see the king again. But isn't it interesting how unkingly he kind of is? because the first thing he turns up, everyone gets knighted, and then he goes, right, well, I suppose I should be doing something about this rebellion, but you're all doing quite well. So shall we go off? It's really, he doesn't want to put the work in, does he? Alan.
He's young Mr. Grace. You're all doing very well.
I don't know. I was thinking more on a younger note. Who else wants to leap in? Lynn.
Well, just back to spicing for a moment. He reminds me a little of a character from Bartholomew Fair. I can't remember his name. I think it's Wasp or something, who basically has to contradict everything you say to him, and you say, and people manipulate that, say, we think you're really smart. No, I'm not. I'm an idiot. What are you talking about? You're wrong. Something like that. So yeah, the humor's take on it definitely works. And then over to Edward. Yeah, that's a really weird moment when Shore says, oh, I'm not worthy. I'm going to decline a knighthood. Like, who does that? And then the king says, in a rather painful irony, well, we'll find some other way to requite you. I'm going to fuck your wife. Like, when you know how that shakes out, that's a really kind of creepy moment.
Spoilers.
Yes.
Well, it's not really spoilers. Everyone knows that's where the plot's going.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh yes, you did.
It's on the frontispiece. It's probably on the posters. It's how you're selling the play is that he's stuck Shore's wife. That's where it's sort of going. I mean, the thing about spicing is that he's not all the time, contradicting people. He wasn't contradicting people in the earlier thing. What he's doing in that scene seems to be a reaction to the previous scene he was on with Falconbridge. It seems to be a progression of his character from a different stage of his relationship. Lois.
Yeah, I think it's probably also, which I think is what Eric was hinting at, the kind of disintegration of the rebels. I mean, they just can't make it anymore, and they're divided among themselves.
Yes, the rebels aren't aren't having a good day. They're not having a good day. And we'd say we've got these wonderful scenes within this scene of them going back and forth, short little bursts, people running on. How's it going here? Then they run off. Then the next lot run on, and it's a very dynamic bit of action fitting in, compressing action very, very quickly. I love the messenger who doesn't actually give a message. They come on just going, thank you very much, off you go, and it's just like, we don't want to give any lines to whichever supernumerary person's playing that part. Any other thoughts before we move on to the next scene? Okay, we will move on to what is labelled here as Scene 10, and let's see how the rebels are getting on after a terrible previous scene. So enter Falconbridge and Spicing with their weapons in their hands.
Thou, the man whose victories drawn at sea filled every heart with terror of thy name, art thou that Neville whom we took thee for? Thou art a louse, thou bastard Falconbridge, thou baser than a bastard in whose birth the very dregs of servitude appear. Why, tell me, liver of some rotten sheep, after by thy allurements we are brought to undertake this course, after thy promises of many golden mountains to ensue, is this the greatest comfort thou canst give? Hast thou ensnared our heedless feet with death, and brought us to the gibbet of defame, and now dost bid us shift and save ourselves? No, craven, were I sure I should be ta'en, I would not stir my feet until this hand had venged me on thee for misguiding us.
Opprobrious villain, stable excrement that never dreamst of other manhood yet, but how to jerk a horse until my words infused into thee resolution's fire. controllest thou me, for that wherein thyself art only the occasion of mishap? Hadst thou and they stood to it as well as I, the day had been our own, and London now that laughs in triumph should have wept in tears. But being backed by such faint-hearted slaves, no marvel if the lion could go to rack, as though it were not incident to kings sometime to take repulse. Mine is no more, nor is it for that the muddy brain of thine to tutor me how to digest my loss. Then fly with those that are already fled, or any stay behind and hang all but the head.
O prejudice to Spicing's conquering name, whose valour even the haps this sword hath made, upon the flint and iron bars at Aldgate, like mouths will publish while the city stands, that I shrunk back, that I was never seen, to show my manly spleen but with a whip. I tell thee, Falconbridge, the least of these do challenge blood before they be appeased.
Oh, away, ye scoundrel! Tempt not my resolve. The courage that survives in Falconbridge scorns the encounter of so base a drudge.
By the pure temper of this sword of mine, by this true flesh and blood that gripes the same, and by the honour I did win of late, against those frosty bearded citizens I shall be tried before we do depart, whether accuseth other wrongfully, or which of us two is the better man.
I shall but quit the hangman of a labour, yet rather than to be upbraided thus, the eagle once will stoop to feed on carrion.
And they fight. Enter Chub.
Hold, if ye be men. If not, hold as ye are, rebels and strong thieves. I bring ye news of a proclamation. The king hath promised that whosoe'er can bring the head of Falconbridge or Spicing shall have for his labor 1,000 crowns. What mean you then to swagger? Save yourselves.
This proclamation comes in happy time. I'll vanquish Falconbridge, and with this sword cut off his head and bear it to the king. So not alone shall I be pardoned, but have 1,000 crowns is promised.
This rascal was ordained to save my life. For now, when I have overthrown the wretch, even with his head I'll yield me to the king. His princely word is passed to pardon me, and though I were the chief in this rebellion, yet this will be a means to make my peace.
Oh, that I knew how to betray them both.
How sayest thou, Spicing? Wilt thou yield thyself? For I have vowed, either alive or dead, to bring thee to King Edward.
And I have vowed the like by thee. How will these two bad contraries agree?
And I the same by both of you.
Come, sir, I'll quickly rid you of that care.
And what thou lottest me shall be thy share.
And we're just going to pause there midway through the scene. Just to note that when Spicing and Falconbridge and Chub are saying how much they'd like to betray the other people around them, those are asides. They're not labelled in the script as at this moment, but they clearly are. They're not going to each other. I'm going to kill you in a minute. That clearly would not work. I mean, they're not that stupid. Yeah, the relationship's really broken down here. We have this really nice progression of this Spicing Falconbridge relationship. We were discussing in the first session how the idea of what was going on with these characters wasn't really clear in the very first scene that they appear, but certainly from the end of last session and here, there's a really nice direction to it. And also the insult work is strong here. Opprobrious villain, stable excrement. You stable excrement, you. That's one way of putting it. And there are other ones as well. What was the one Helen put in the chat? Liver of some rotten sheep. Yeah, they really this is one where you feel that they brought in a swearing consultant like they did for the thick of it. Someone to write all the really good insults. How we and then Chub enters and goes, there's a fright on all your heads, people. Thoughts? Any thoughts about this scene so far? No, everyone's just stunned at it. It's brilliant. I mean, it's great fun so far. Helen.
It's thieves fall out, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, fundamentally, it shows their lack of a moral center. If such were needed, which it probably isn't.
This is true. Tamara, how is it coming across to you as someone who's only just come into this viewed this relationship of characters just now?
I mean, you probably saw my face when Chub had his little aside about betraying them both. I'm just enjoying myself, really. Betrayal all the way.
I just love a little bit of betrayal. It's always good fun. It's good for the soul. So it's we're only a wee bit into the scene, and we are I think working towards end game, possibly for these characters. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe they will go on. Any other thoughts before we move on? No. Okay. I don't think Andrew, are you available to read in at this moment, or shall I read in for you? Because I get the impression you're still very much deep in the world of internet communication. Okay, I'll read in the Miller for you for the moment. So, at this moment in the scene, enter a miller.
Here comes a miller. Help to part the fray. These are the rebels Falconbridge and spicing. The worst of them is worth 1,000 crowns.
Marry, and such a booty would I have. Submit, submit. It is in vain to strive. And exit Falconbridge.
Why, what art thou?
One that will hamper you. But what's the other that is fled away?
Oh, miller, that is Falconbridge, and this is spicing, his companion.
I tell thee, miller, thou hast been the means to hinder the most charitable deed that ever honest Christian undertook.
Thou canst bear me witness. I had taken the most notorious rebel but for him.
But I have taken thee, and the world knows that spicing is as bad as who is best.
Why, thou mistakest. I am a true subject.
Miller, he lies. Be sure to hold him fast.
Dost thou accuse me? Apprehend him too, for he's as guilty as any of us.
Come, you shall both together answer it before my Lord Mayor, and here he comes. Enter Lord Mayor, Josselyn, and attendants.
Sir Ralph Josselyn, have you ever seen a prince more affable than Edward is? What merry talk he had upon the way.
Doubtless, my lord, he'll prove a royal king. But how now? What are these?
God save your honour. Here I present unto you, my Lord Mayor, a pair of rebels whom I did espy as I was busy grinding at my mill, and taking them for vagrant idle knaves that had beset some true man from his house. I came to keep the peace, but afterward found that it was the bastard Falconbridge and this his mate together by the ears. The one, for all that I could do, escaped. The other standeth at your mercy here.
It is the rebel spicing.
It is indeed. I see you are not blind. You know me then.
Well, Miller, thou hast done a subject's part and worthily deserves that recompense. Is publicly proclaimed by the king, but what's this other? I have seen his face, and as I take it, he is one of them.
Oh, I must confess, I took them both together. He aided me to apprehend the rest.
It tells you true, my lord. I am Chub the Chandler, and I curse the time that ever I saw their faces, for If they had not been, I had lived an honest man in mine own country and never come to this.
Out, rogue, I dost thou recount for fear of death? Ay, Mayor, I am he that sought to cut your throat, and since I have miscarried in the fact, I'll ne'er deny it. Do the worst you can.
Bring him away. He shall have martial law. And at the next tree we do come unto, be hanged to rid the world of such wretch. Miller, thy duty is 1,000 marks, which must be shared betwixt thee and this poor fellow that did reveal him. And sirrah, your life is saved on this condition that you hang up spicing. How sayest thou? Wilt thou do it?
Will I do it? What a question is that? I would hang him if he were my father to save mine own life.
Then when ye have done it, come home to my house, and there ye shall truly have your reward.
Well, sirrah, then thou must be my hangman.
Aye, by my troth, sir, for fault of a better.
Well, commend me to little Pym, and pray her to redeem my pained horse. They lie at the Blue Boar for 11pence, and if my hostess will have the other odd penny, tell her she is a damned bawd, and there is no truth in her score.
Take to thought, sir, for your painted hose. They are lousy, and not worth the redeeming.
There is a constable sticks in my mind. He got my sword from me. That night I should have killed Black Ralph. If I had lived, I would have been met with him.
Aye, sir, but here's a thing shall take order for that.
Commend me to Black Luce, Bouncing Bess, and Lusty Kate, and the other pretty morsels of man's flesh. Farewell, Pink and Pinus, Flyboat and Carvel, Turnbull and Splittle, I die like a man.
Oh, Captain Spicing, thy vain enticing brought me from my trade. From good candle making to this pains taking, a rebel to be made. Therefore, Ned Spicing, to quit thy enticing, this must be thy hope, by one of thy fellows to be led to the gallows, to end in a rope.
And they exit. It's interesting. It seems to be I don't know if I'm just projecting here, but you know, all these echoes of other history plays that we've had a Bouncing Bess before. I think that was Famous Victories of Henry V. The way Chub functions, similar to elements in Jack Straw as well. I like the fact that he survives by becoming hangman to to the person he's dobbed in. I wouldn't have rebelled if it wasn't for them. It was all them. They made me do it. Honest, Gov. Honest. Yeah, there's yeah, they need the miller to turn up and vaguely help, because otherwise trying to not for one person to capture spicing doesn't seem plausible. So you need some random intermediary to step in, who's a non-character. Yeah, it's an interesting little moment. Thoughts? Any thoughts, Lynn?
Well, what was I going to say? Yeah, so as Helen was saying, no honor among thieves, in case you were wondering if they had any integrity. No. And I'm wondering why a miller? Why not just a citizen? Why specifically a miller? So that's just a question. And we talked about in a different play, the miller is a comic character all covered with flour, and how the miller is an ancestor of certain clowns. One of the reasons that clowns wear white and have white faces is that back in the day the miller was a comic character. So I'm wondering if the miller comes on, he's all covered with flour, and there's this sort of literal dust up with the miller and the other characters, and there's like clouds of flour puffing up into the air as he moves around and confronts them. So is that why a miller? Because he's all covered with flour, and then they all get covered with flour, and that's funny.
I mean, reading the miller, I didn't really detect any options for comedy in him per se. There didn't seem to be anything overt. I'm not saying we couldn't do that. Sounds like a great fun to do. I wouldn't want to be the stage manager on that one, but I'd want to do it in a venue with showers. Tamara.
I was just gonna. I wonder if it was Eliza or somebody mentioned that millers weren't particularly trustworthy, or they had that reputation. So potentially, is that the thinking?
Yeah.
Well, he seems trustworthy enough as a character. I mean, you know, he's just some bloke. I'll go with Helen, then Lois.
I think it's quite relevant that you would have mills they're just outside London, aren't they, in the fields? Well, that's where you would find a mill. And I mean, who would be outside London, hanging about, able to see what was going on? And the answer to that is, well, could be a miller.
It's that thing of, do we need too much of a character here? We just need someone who can be easily and obviously costumed. Lois.
Well, there is the fact that millers were supposedly dishonest. I mean, there's that phrase, the miller's thumb. And I'm not sure exactly how honest he's being in his account of how he captured them. I mean, he says they were hanging around his mill, doesn't he? But then we don't know, because obviously there's no mill on the stage, whether we're meant to have imagined a mill or whether he's just, explaining. I mean, he basically just wanted the reward, and he doesn't really say that.
I think we may be overthinking this, Miller. I'm just going to put it out there. Alan, then Helen.
Just a quick thought is having a rustic or a country character rather than the overdose of Londoners, which we've had over the previous bit, could work.
Yeah. Helen.
I don't think you can have too many heroic Londoners, but nevertheless, I'd like to discuss the top man, the hangman. I've got examples of this from varying places where who didn't hang enough people to have someone whose profession it was. And sometimes when they couldn't find someone, they would pick out among those who had been convicted at an assize, the one who was the least offensive of them all, and say, you can have a free pardon if you hang all the rest. And this was usually taken up, but it was not in any way abnormal. They even a woman once, somewhere over in the west, in the Lancashire, I think, there was a woman who did it, and people wrote that it was quite remarkable how efficient she was, but I bet they paid her less.
Eric.
It was that line which I was like, it's a bit dodgy. Yeah, come to my house and we'll give you your reward. I don't know, that's like a dinner or suggesting something else, or I don't know. Maybe that was just me, like, because you don't invite. I mean, even if you're like the Lord Mayor, are you expected to entertain like a miller for doing like sort of good service and stuff?
The Lord Mayor effectively keeps open house, and that's one of the things we've been looking at in the civic pageantry sessions, is that basically he is expected to. So yeah, it could be sinister. It could be come over for your reward. Your reward is actually we lie, but it could actually be entirely innocent. We don't know yet. We'll see. Maybe there'll be a scene later on. Helen, were you going to say any more?
I was going to say exactly that. Yeah. It's perfectly normal that wherever the Lord Mayor lived, that became the major civic office.
It was expensive being a Lord Mayor. It cost a lot. I like the fact that I'm assuming that Chub is singing at the end of this scene. It could just be a ditty and a rhyme, but I'm just wondering whether that's a semi-singy role there.
To a popular tune.
Yes, absolutely. To something everyone can sing along to. Because you can almost hear the audience knowing that after the rhyme of hope, we're going to end with a rope. Hopefully the audience would pick up on that. Okay, we're going to move forward to scene 11, and we're introduced to another new character. So another new character, a new character. So enter Hobs, the tanner of Tamworth.
Gudgeon, dost thou hear? Look well to Brock, my mare. Drive Dun and her fare softly down the hill, and take heed the horns tear not the horns of my cowhides, as thou goest near the hedges. Ha! What sayest thou, knave? Is the bull's hide down? Why, lay it up again. What care I? I'll meet at the stile, and I'll help to set all straight. And yet, God help, it's a crooked world, and I've thriftily for some that have near a shoe had rather go barefoot than buy clout leather to mend the old when they can buy no new. For they have time enough to spend all. They sit so long between the cup and the wall. Well, God amend them. God amend them. Let me see. By my executor here, my leather pouch, what have I taken? What have I spent? What have I gained? What have I lost? What have I laid out? My taking is more than spending, for here's store left. I have spent but a groat, a penny for my 2 jades, a penny to the poor, a penny pot of ale, and a penny cake for my man and me. A dicker of how hides cost me.
And enter the Queen and Duchess, and not in this script, but probably 2 huntsmen, with their Queen and Duchess entering with their riding rods, unpinning their masks, and Hobbs goes forward.
Snails, who comes here? Mistress Ferris, or Mistress, what call you her? Put up, John Hobbs. Money tempts beauty.
Well met, good fellow. Saw'st thou not the hart?
My heart? God bless me for seeing my heart.
Thy heart? The dear, man. We demand the dear.
Do you demand what, dear? Marry, corned cowhides? Mass a good snug lass, well, like my daughter Nell. I'd a rather than spend of leather she and I might smouch together.
Camest thou not down the wood?
Yes, mistress, that I did.
And saw'st thou not the deer embossed?
By my hood, ye make me laugh. What the dickens? Is it love that makes you prate me so fondly? By my father's soul, I would I had job faces with you.
Why, how now, Hobbs? So saucy with the Duchess and Queen?
Much queen, I trow. These be but women, and one of them is like my wench. I would she had her rags. I would give her a load of hair and horns and a fatter leather to match her to some justice by the Meg Holly.
Be silent, Tanner, and ask pardon of the Queen.
And ye he the Queen? I cry ye mercy, good mistress Queen.
No fault, my friend. Madam, let's take our bows, and in the standing seek to get a shot. Our bows, my bad. And in the standing seek to get a shoot.
Come, bend our bows and bring the herd of deer.
Exit the Queen, Duchess, and train. Remain Hobbs.
God send ye good standing and good striking and fat flesh. See if all gentlewomen be not alike when their black faces be on. I took the Queen, as I am a true tanner, for Mistress Ferris.
And enter Selinger and Harrod in green.
Soft, who comes here? More knaves yet?
Oh, good fellow, sawest thou not the king?
No, good fellow. I saw no king. Which king dost thou ask for?
Why, King Edward, what king is there else?
There's another king, and ye could hit on him, one Harry, and by Our Lady, they say he's the honester man of the 2.
Sirrah, beware you speak not treason.
What if I do?
Then shalt thou be hanged.
A dog's death, I'll not meddle with it, for by my troth, I know not when I speak treason. When I do not, there's such halting betwixt 2 kings that a man cannot go upright, but he shall offend to one of them. I would God have them both for me.
Well, thou sawest not the king.
No. Is he in the country?
He's hunting here in Drayton Bassett.
The devil he is. God bless his mastership. I saw a woman here that they said was the Queen. She's as like my daughter, but my daughter is the fairer as I ever see.
Farewell, fellow. Speak well of the king.
And exit Lord Howard and Selinger.
God make him an honest man. I hope that's well spoken, for by the mousefoot some give him hard words, whether he serves them not. Let him look to that. I'll meddle in my cowhide and let the world slide.
Enter the king disguised.
The devil in a dung cart. How the roysters swarm in the country, now the king is so near. God deliver me from this, for this looks like a thief. But a man can I tell amongst these court knolls who's true.
Holla, my friend. Good fellow. Prithee, stay.
No such matter. I have more haste of my way.
If thou be a good fellow, let me borrow a word.
My purse thou mean'st. I am no good fellow, and I pray God thou beest no one.
Why? Dost not thou not love a good fellow?
No, good fellows be thieves.
Dost thou think I am one?
Thought is free, and thou art not my ghostly father.
I mean thee no harm.
Who knows that by thyself? I pray God he spy not my purse.
On my truth, I mean thee none.
Upon thy oath I'll stay. Now what sayest thou to me? Speak quickly, for my company stays for me beneath at the next stile.
The king is hunting hereabouts. Didst thou see his majesty?
His majesty? What's that? His horse or his mare?
Tush, I mean his grace.
Grace, quotha? Pray God he have any. Which king dost thou inquire for?
Why? For King Edward. Knowst thou any more kings than one?
I know not so many, for I tell thee, I know none. Marry, I hear of King Edward.
Didst thou see his highness?
By my holiday, that's the best term thou gavest him yet. He's high enough, but he has put poor King Harry low enough.
How low hath he put him?
Nay, I cannot tell. But he has put him down, for he has got the crown much good to him with it.
Amen. I like thy talk so well. I would know thy name.
Dost thou not know me?
No.
Then thou knowest nobody. Didst never hear of John Hobs, the tanner of Tamworth?
Not till now, I promise thee. But now I like thee well.
So do not I thee. I fear thou art some outrider that lives by taking of purses here on Bassett's Heath. But I fear thee not, for I am wearied all my money in cow's hide at Coleshill Market, and my man and my mare are hard by at the Hillfoot.
Is that the grey mare that's tied at the stile with the hides on her back?
That's Brock, my mare. And there's Dunn, my nag, and Dudgeon, my man.
There's neither man nor horse, but only one mare.
God's blue budkin, has the knave served me so? Farewell, I may lose hides, horns, and mare and all by pressing with thee.
Tarry, man, tarry. They'll sooner take my gelding than thy grey mare, for I've tied mine by her.
That will I see, afore I'll take your word.
I'll bear thee company.
I had as a leave, go alone.
And they exit. Now, we are pausing here, and it's down as a separate scene. But in a sense, this is a scene that's going to have a sort of mid-scene to show some passing of time, and then we're going to sort of return to this scene in a moment. So don't feel that this unit of action is over, even though it sort of is. So, yeah, anyone else feeling that we've just stepped into a slightly different play?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yes.
Completely different change of pace.
Yeah, suddenly we're in the world of Hobbs, the Tanner of Tamworth, and we're feeling a bit more in the world of Friar Bungay and maybe Fairham, and this random king in disguise stuff. It's an interesting change of it. We've had the action. They've broadly speaking tied up all the action of rebellion stuff. Or at least enough for the moment. I mean, we don't know what's happened to Falconbridge. He's still at large. We get this world of Hobbs and his man Dudgeon. We don't see Dudgeon. and his horse and his mare and his hides. And they encounter the queen in the woods, and then he encounters some lords in the woods, and then he encounters the king disguised in the woods. It's all, all sorts of things. Thoughts about this clown figure. I think we can call him a clown, even though it's the first outright clown, I think we can say, of the play. We've got comedy. We haven't necessarily got clowns. Eric.
I feel like it's that scene from, I don't know, various plays where you can find like a king disguising himself to find out what the people think of him. But it's actually a very honest scene in that a lot of people would not have known what the king or queen or current monarch looks like. Sort of, even if they were sort of just like, wearing a fake mustache or something. And it's kind of, I think it's telling in that sense, but also it's obviously very funny.
Well, yeah, it's the thing is, in the sense of the king is disguised. I don't think he needs to be an elaborate disguise because, there's no way Hobs, the Tanner of Tamworth, is going to know what the king looks like or even which king it is. I mean, there is a confused time. So he just needs to be in different clothes to denote a different status or similar, unless the king is disguising himself for other people as well. Is it clear why the king is disguised? Is it declared? Helen?
No, but what he's doing is taking the temper of the nation, and nowadays he would commission an opinion poll. Instead of going out and asking random peasants random questions. The Majesty, Grace and Highness thing is quite interesting. Because Majesty was a brand new title for an English king. Came in with about, I think, with Henry VIII. So it was unfamiliar. And Highness and Grace were far more common at the time of this play. The Queen's Highness.
Yeah, it's reminding me a bit of the time when Gordon Brown just randomly phoned up members of the electorate and just started having chats with them in the middle of the night. It was I'm not imagining that. I'm sure that did actually happen, but it is that thing of just randomly chatting to some poor bloke for no readily apparent reason at all. Lynn.
Yeah, I think it's also really fascinating that Edward seems to be trying to, pull some information, some opinion, some point of view out of Hobs, and Hobs is very cagey. He really kind of refuses to come down on one side or another. He never says, yes, our king is Edward and he's the rightful king and I'm really glad he's king, or he's a usurper and a tyrant and he's put down the rightful king. It's like, oh, he's high enough and he's put the other king down. He's got the crown. May it, more power to him. Hobbes' sort of disengagement with high politics is really fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's not just disengagement; it's also the not shooting his mouth off and not trusting who this random stranger is as well. Don't call me a good fellow. There's actually something very contrary about him throughout the scene. Actually, that's really interesting. I'm really liking that. Lois.
Yeah, I mean, it's partly because of the previous scene where he was kind of warned that he could be a traitor if he said the wrong thing. And he says, oh, you just never know what to say these days. Anything can turn out to be wrong. So he's trying now, I think, to be, more sensible. Yeah, that business about a good fellow is very interesting. I mean, that was one of those phrases that could be quite innocent or could, in fact, mean exactly what he thinks it might mean, a highwayman or a crook of some sort.
Mm. Other thoughts about this little engagement? Obviously, Queen and Duchess out. How do we think there's very little evidence to go on here. Are the Queen and Duchess getting on? Is it a good idea for the Queen and the Duchess to be carrying weaponry? Those who are here for the first scene, they're not each other's best fans. Helen.
Yes, I mean that. There's no sign here that they're not at least observing the courtesies. But there's a thing about them being in blackface, which I think indicates. I think a well-born lady out hunting would in fact wear a cloth mask to protect her complexion.
Mm.
And I think that's what this may mean.
That's a excellent point. Alan?
Or possibly camouflage to a certain extent.
I don't think
If
they're
they're
disguising their status.
No, camouflage from the deer.
Well, yeah, they would stand at a point and the deer would be driven past them so that they could fire at them.
They're not working hard. They're not working hard.
They're not
The
stalking. They're
the
really
huntsmen
not stalking.
the huntsmen are curating their experience for them. So there's obviously this sort of interesting hunting party going on, and I suppose that's the occasion that the king's just sort of broken away and just quickly put on a cloak or something so he can try and find someone to talk to, but not that far away from his own people. You know, it sort of makes sense. Okay, we'll move on. So we have a mini scene with the huntsman who we have already encountered. They return, and then we're going to go straight into scene 13, which is effectively a continuation of Hobs and King Edward's little chat. And we'll let that sort of run on a bit. We may pause midway through that scene. Anyway, scene 12, re-enter the two huntsmen and with the bows.
How on my troth, the Queen shoots passing well.
So did the Duchess when she was young.
Age shakes the hand and shoots both wide and short.
What have they given us?
6 rose nobles just.
The Queen gave 4.
True, and the Duchess twain.
Oh, were we ever so paid for our pain?
Had the king come, as they said he would have rained upon us showers of gold.
Why, he's hunting somewhere hereabout. Let's first go drink and seek him out.
Exit 2 huntsmen. I was going to go on, but actually that's such a lovely, interesting little scene, isn't it? It's just really there to break up between the exit and the re-entrance of King Edward and Hobs. But what did you get in tips? Oh, well, I only got this. Yeah. If only the king was here. Got so much more money then. Lynn?
Yeah, it's noticeable that these couple of scenes, well, 3 even, if you count the scene with the Queen and the Duchess and Hobs as its own separate thing, that the ordinary people are really quite focused on money. That, Hobs is counting the money in his purse, saying, oh, my comings in are more than my goings out, a penny here, a penny there, but the hides brought me in more than that. He's counting his money and protective of his bags, and then the king comes in and he's like, you're gonna steal my money. Don't you steal my money. Oh no, somebody stole my horse. And then the huntsmen are coming in, counting what they made in gratuities for their helping the king and the Queen and the Duchess. So this focus on money it just sort of stands out to me.
All of these characters, even the really small characters, are given a character. They are given an inner life of some description. That's exactly what someone on a servant person of this kind would do. This is what anyone working in a bar or for a big event would do at the end of their shift, is just go, what did you get? Oh, I only got, and this play does all of the social layers. It really is engaging with everyone in a way that's really quite delightful, and that we found with I think our more favourite history plays so far have all been the ones that have engaged across the levels of peoples. I'm loving them; they're great. Any other thoughts before we move on? Okay, let's get back into some King Edward action. I always wanted. I'm starting to just see him as a potato. I've got to stop doing that. Shouldn't have said that out loud, should I? Everyone's going to be thinking that now. So enter King Edward again and Hobs.
Ha! Says thou, Tanner, wilt thou take my courser for thy mare?
Courser, call'st thou him? So I'll mount my fare, my skittish jade will never abide to carry my leather, my horns, nor hide. But if I was so mad to course, what boot wouldst thou give me?
Nay, boot that's boot-worthy. I look for boot of thee.
A merry jig. Why, man, Brock, my mare, knows how to rig, and I will stand when I cry ho, and let me get up and down and make water when I do.
I'll give thee a noble, if I like her pace. Lay thy cowhides on my saddle, and let's jog towards Drayton.
'Tis out of my way, but I begin to like thee well.
Thou wilt like me better before we do part. I prithee, tell me, what say they of the king?
Of the kings, thou meanest. Art thou no blab if I tell thee?
If the king know it not now, he shall never know it for me.
Mass, they say King Harry's a very arbitrary man.
A devout man. And what of King Edward?
He's a frank Franian, a merry companion, and loves a wench. They say he has married a poor widow because she's fair.
Dost thou like him the worse for that?
No, by my feckins, but the better. For though I be a plainer tanner, I love a fair lass myself.
Prithee tell me, how love they King Edward?
Faith, as poor folks love holidays, glad to have them now and then, but to have them come too often will undo them. So to see the king now and then 'tis comfort, but every day will beggar us. And I may say to thee, we fear we shall be troubled to lend him money, for we doubt he's but needy.
Wouldst thou lend him no money, if he should?
By my halidom, yes. He shall have half my store, and I'll sell sole leather to help him to more.
Faith, whether thou lovest better Harry or Edward?
Nay, that's counsel, and two may keep it, if be away.
Shall I say my conscience? I think Harry is the true king.
Art advised of that? Harry's of the old house of Lancaster, and that Prognetti do I love.
And dost thou not hate the house of York?
Why, no, for I am just aching to Sutton windmill. I can grind which way south the wind blow. If it be Harry, I can say, well, fair Lancaster. If it be Edward, I can sing York, York, for my money.
Thou art of my mind. But I say Harry is the lawful king. Edward is but a usurper and a fool and a coward.
Nay, there thou liest. He has wit enough and courage enough. Dost thou not speak treason?
Aye, but I know to whom I speak it.
Dost thou? Well, if I were a constable, I should be forsworn if I set thee in the stocks for it.
Well, let it go no further, for I did serve King Harry, and I love him best, though now I serve King Edward.
Thou art the Arranter, knave to speak ill of thy master. But, Sarah, what's thy name? My office hast thou, and what will the king do for thee?
My name's Ned. I'm the king's butler, and he will do more for me than for any nobleman in the court.
The devil he will. Is the more fool, so I'll tell him, if here I see him, and I would I might see him in my poor house at Tamworth.
Go with me to the court, and I'll bring thee to the king. And what suit soe'er thou'lt have to him, I warrant thee to speed.
I had nothing to at court. I'll home with my cowhides, and if the king will come to me, he shall be welcome.
Hast thou no suit touching thy trade, to transport hides, or sell leather only in a certain circuit, or about bark or such like, to have letters patent?
By the mass and the matins, I like those patents. Sirrah, they have them, do, as the priest did in old time, buy and sell the sins of the people. So they make the king believe they mend what's amiss, and for money they make the thing worse than it is. There's another thing in too. The more is the pity.
What pity, John Hobs? I prithee, say all.
Faith, 'tis pity that one subject should have in his hand that might do good to many through the land.
Say'st thou me so, Tanner? Well, let's cast lots whether thou shalt go with me to Drayton, or I go home with thee to Tamworth.
Lot me no lotting. I'll not go with thee, if thou wilt go with me, 'cause thou art my liege's man, and yet I think he has many honester. Thou shalt be welcome to John Hobs. Thou shalt be welcome to beef and bacon, and perhaps a bag pudding, and my daughter Nell shall pop a posset upon thee when thou goest to bed.
Here's my hand. I'll but go and see the king served, and I'll be home as soon as thyself.
Dost thou hear me, Ned? If I shall be thy host, make haste, thou art best, for thou hiss miss the post.
And exit Hobs.
Farewell, John Hobs, the honest true tanner. I see plain men by observation of things that alter in the change of times, do gather knowledge, and the meanest life, proportioned with content sufficiency, is merrier than the mighty state of kings.
And at that moment of introspection from King Edward, possibly the first moment of introspection we've had from King Edward in the play so far. I'm just going to pause there before some people step in. I think that the thing about this scene, or this progression of scenes, is that if King Edward had sort of popped in at the beginning and said, I'm going to go out and find out what the people think beforehand, I think there's part of me that's just going, I'd like to have had spelt out in advance what this sequence of the play was doing. And I know that's probably just my failing, but that now that we're in it, I'm sort of going, we know where we are now, we're sort of leveled into it. The play hasn't eased us into this sequence as it has other sequences, because Edward really pushes here, doesn't he? He's really pushing. He's really some quite clever play as to what he presents his opinions as. Lois.
Yeah, in fact, he's being rather wicked, I think. I mean, he's behaving like Chrysippus and Damon and Pythias, saying all sorts of things that are leading someone on to speak treason. And he could, after all, then come down on him and have him executed as a traitor. I mean, I suppose he's just doing all this as a sort of joke, but it could work that way.
I mean, I really love Hobbes's response to, do you love King Edward? Well, not every day. It depends how often he's here. I like that idea of kings are better, seen not heard. Other thoughts about it's a really nice two-hander as well. It's a nice still point. We've had a lot of action. A lot of speedy action, a lot of noise, potentially a lot of dead bodies, even though these, none of the directions state so. We've had, it's all brought down to someone being dragged off to be hanged. And then we get this sort of little rural idyll and this sort of disputation. And that's really, really nice. And, hints of problems to come. I'm saying to King Edward, come back with me, and my daughter Nell shall pop a posset upon thee. Before you go to bed, I bet she will. Knowing Edward, given half a chance. Whether it's going that way, I don't know, but that's just again. And the way that Hobbs, they say. King Harry's a very avoutory man, which is a double meaning potentially can be used in that, which plays around with ironies quite nicely between characters. Other thoughts? Helen.
There's the patent problem, which was very current at the time. It was a way giving patents to courtiers and others for money, patents to give them sole rights, monopolies, trading rights. It was becoming a big thing because the government by this time was desperately short of money, and they were screwing it out of ordinary people by by giving patents to people to control trades.
I was going to ask if patents were the same as monopolies, and yeah,
Yes.
And so 99, the war with Spain's been going on for
Over a
11
decade.
Yeah, and there's just no end in sight. Yeah, Elizabeth was always desperately short of money.
And mean as hell with it.
Yeah, it was always the underinvestment was always her problem, wasn't it? It always bit further down the line. Lois.
Yeah, there's that odd reference to buying and selling as priests did in the old time. I mean, they're in the old time. You know, he's talking as if he were post-Reformation.
Yes.
But haven't I mean, I think he's talking about indulgences. I think maybe the Catholic Church doesn't practice that anymore.
It's still saying being complained about until the 1530s and in plays. So I think it's still. I think there is a little bit of conflation in the mind of the dramatist here. In the same way as in medieval drama, we have people swearing on God's wounds during his nativity. It's it's always read the room, people, read the room. So. Okay. Thoughts about Hobs as a character? I mean, he's not an out and out overt clown, but he seems to be. It's the part you'd hand to a clown. But he's well sketched. He's clever. He's not an idiot by any stretch. He's really. You feel that he knows the danger he is in with this kind of conversation. And he's being drawn, but yet he's trying to make sure his answers are considered enough so that he doesn't get into trouble.
But he's a nice man.
Yeah.
And he's eventually won over and invites the guy home.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because he thinks he's going to get a really good deal on the horse.
It's a nice horse. It's a lovely horse. Okay, let's complete the scene. There isn't much left on this session text-wise to go. So Edward has, as I say, he's spoken to the audience, or to himself-ish, about this true, honest tanner. And then his train of thought is interrupted by the entrance of Lord Howard and Selinger.
How now? What news bring ye, sirs? Where is the Queen?
Her Highness and your mother, my dread lord, are both invited by Sir Humphrey Bowes, where they intend to feast and lodge this night, and do expect your Grace's presence there.
Tom Selinger and I have other business, astray from you and all my other train. I met a tanner, such a merry mate, so frolic and so full of good conceit, that I have given my word to be his guest, because he knows me not to be the king. Oh, good cousin Howard, grudge me not at the jest. But greet my mother and my wife from me, bid them be merry. I must have my humour. Let them both sup and sleep when they see time. Commend me kindly to Sir Humphrey Bowes. Tell him at breakfast I will visit him. This night Tom Selinger and I must feast with Hobs the tanner. There play Ned and Tom, no king nor Selinger, for £1,000.
Enter a messenger booted with letters, and kneeling gives them to the king.
The Queen and Duchess will be discontent because his Highness comes not to the feast.
Sir Humphrey Bowes may take the most conceit, but what's the end? The king will have his pleasure.
Good news, my boys. Harry the Sixth is dead. Peruse that letter. Sirrah, drink you that.
And with that line, hands messenger a purse of money.
And stay not, but post back again for life, and thank my brother Gloucester for his news. Commend me to him. I'll see him tomorrow night. How like you it, sirs?
The
Oh,
messenger has exited at this point.
Oh, passing well, my liege. You may be merry for these happy news.
The merry are with our host, the tanner, Tom. My lord, take you that letter to the ladies. Bid them be merry with that second course. And if we see them not before we go, pray them to journey easily after us. We'll post to London. So, good night, my lord.
And they exit. I've written in my note here is that King says to the people there, I'm going to go with this tanner. And I've written a note here at that point. Howard makes a face. Because it's immediately, good cousin Howard, grudge me not at the jest. And it's just clearly Howard just going, what? I'm going to have to explain this to the Queen? Really? Oh, God.
And Sir Humphrey bows, who is going to be seriously pissed.
Yeah. Yes. And again, we've got these little asides as the King's reading this letter. Howard and Selinger just going, well, this is going to be fun. Yeah, once again, we have a messenger who doesn't say anything, who comes in and goes, the plot's happening. Look, plot's happened off stage. King's dead. All's right in the world. It's like, incidentally, there's a history play happening over here.
Yeah.
Lois.
Well, do you think the message happens to have said that that the king in the tower was murdered by the Duke of Gloucester, his brother? I mean, it seems rather odd that this doesn't come up.
Well, I mean, it may come up sort of sideways with the messenger who he rewards well. Sirrah, drink you that, lots of gold.
Yeah.
Stay not, post back again for life, and thank my brother Gloucester for his news. So, I mean, you could read that either way. I mean, I don't think the play is actually interested in that narrative at all. It's just interested in Edward being a nice chap. So he just died. Yeah, Henry VI just died, people. Just purely coincidental that he was imprisoned. Just happened. Pooh. Eek. Whoops. But yeah, this play just doesn't care. It is not what it's not the story it's telling. Eric.
I was going to say it's like that thing that you've been saying all along. The king is very unkingly. He chooses to go for the tanner, although he knows it might cause like diplomatic issues with like not only the queen, and his wife, and sort of the noble man who's supposed to like be hosting them for the evening.
Yeah, at greater personal expense. You've got to remember that when you host the king, it costs you an absolute fortune in stuff and housing and putting up with his train. And so, commend me kindly to Humphrey. Tell him at breakfast I'll visit him. And you're going, have you any idea how much this feasting of the evening is going to cost us? You're coming for breakfast?
And now he isn't even that.
Yeah.
Also, in a previous scene, hadn't he said that, I just got married and I'm going to go enjoy my wife, which he obviously hasn't done yet.
Oh,
He was on his way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Easily distracted.
Yeah, he's a lusty fellow, I think. I mean, I think on the track of talking about humours, again, we've got second, or at least egregious reference to humours. The king talking about him and his humours. I think here we might be on much firmer ground about him and his humours and about his moods and his wants and his desires. Because, I think we're starting to get more into who Edward is. As we're going. Other thoughts about Edward himself? Greg, you were Edward yesterday. Briefly, you've watched Edward today. How are you feeling about Edward yourself?
He's an interesting character. It was interesting when I remember when looking at this originally that I found the Hobbs scenes confusing, but now I find them they're really, really interesting. Yeah, he's not a nice man, I don't think, underneath all this is what I feel. But that might be with my knowledge of what comes next.
Yeah, at this stage, I wouldn't use the words whether he's nice or he is a flawed figure. I'm going to go with at this stage. We shall see later on. We can make a judgment at the end of this process. We're only halfway through part 1, which is where we are at the moment. Yeah, he's not the person you want to be king, really, would you? He's not coming across as kingly. In the same way as some people don't come across as a very good prime minister. It's easily distracted and much more interested in women. I'm not suggesting that this has any parallels at all.
Geppetto is still doing well.
Yeah. So that's all of that we're looking at this session in terms of text. So now we're moving into more sort of overall territory of sort of what we've looked at today for those who've only been here today, but also the play overall so far. And I'll sort of prefix this these final thoughts sequence with we've sort of crossed over between 2 acts of this tale, if that makes sense. We've had the rebellion story, which has been to a degree put to bed, and now we're stepping into a slightly different aspect of this narrative, and we sort of this session we're sort of splinched between the 2, and so yeah, we've had this interesting step change, and yeah, the Hobbs scene sort of comes out at you a bit out of the blue, but it does. It's obviously setting up things for later on, as well as connecting distantly with things that happened at the very, very beginning of the play. So yeah, general thoughts about the play so far, predictions about where it may be going. We're halfway through this play, or a quarter of the way through the overall narrative. So huge amounts of material to go. If this was a single play, we'd still be in Act 1 in terms of action. Perhaps we should put it that way. So I'll go to someone who was here yesterday. Eric, thoughts on the play so far?
I think it's interesting that they're sort of unraveling the character of the king. It's not so much breadcrumbs, but like more like, you've got a massive like, I don't know, yarn or something, and it's like sort of slowly unraveling. And I think the interaction with Hobbs was more like sort of, oh look, he can respect the honest, everyday man, but he really can't, because we know from like, real life that it's just a novelty to him until something goes wrong, basically. I mean, I'm imagining, but I mean, based on sort of psychology,
Are you implying he's shallow?
Yes.
Tough.
And yeah, he's kind of, well, besides, the sort of Tanner did say he married a fair wife, sort of not necessarily for her money or anything else, which I guess might be to his credit in some ways. And also it's interesting that he kind of like it's the Duchess and the Queen who have gone hunting, not him. That he claimed he was going to go hunting, but he didn't, which I think says a bit about him, that he's kind of like changing his mind all the time.
We've got a whole sort of panoply of characters that we've passed through here. We haven't quite fully wrapped up necessarily the Falconbridge plot line, but we have, to a degree, various rebels have died as well. Greg, you were Falconbridge today. How are you feeling about the Falconbridge thing, the play overall? You helped bring this this session to fruition by presenting me with the text. Thank you very much. So it's very much halfway through the play. How are you feeling? It's gone for you.
I really enjoyed Falconbridge's first scene, I thought, and the interactions with Spicer was superb. That first speech, again laying the map of London, just with a few words and sort of very much I can't remember the name of the map, but the view, but almost feeling like I was stood on looking at that view with the various streets and pinpointing where he was talking about. I'm still in love with this play. It really fascinating. I'm looking forward to hearing the next 2 days and when you do the next part 2 in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's that speech when we opened, yeah, which we didn't really comment on. You know, he's comparing London with Troy. You know, standing, painting this picture, and I think that's something of what Heywood is doing with this play. He's using language really to paint images and paint pictures, and there's some really startling effects that are going on that just are absolutely fab. I'm really enjoying the way the text is flowing in that way, and yet Falconbridge and to a lesser degree Spicing are really getting those effects in terms of invective as well. You know, he can use language in a relatively in emboldening way, but then also just really reaches down and goes for the throat in ways that are really quite engaging. Tamara, you have joined us today, so you know it's gaps in thoughts. How are you finding this game of two halves? I think we should call this session
game of two. I actually wrote down there's some Monty Python hiding in that. That's the first thing that came to my mind. It's it's another one of those history plays that don't feel like history plays. I'm enjoying it. I really am. I will. Whoops! Adobe's just opened on me for a random reason. I'm really enjoying the it's chaotic for me, but that's probably just because I came in later. And yeah, what else can I really say about this? I'm just having fun with it. I just like it. Listening to it is fun.
Are there any characters you particularly would like to go for? You know, that's something I didn't put out last time. You know, who are our favourites? Because it's full of you know, even first and second Huntsman. I'm as an actor going, I could do something with that.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. All the characters are fun in different ways. I really liked being Josselyn. I love Hobs in a way. It's just they're all written in a way that every single ensemble actor can show something, which is really nice, except for the messenger who comes on and doesn't say a thing and then
Twice.
Yeah, I'm commending that. I'm going. I kind of, you know, it's like this play is to a degree going, this is what history plays does. This is what they do. We're not doing that. Someone's going to have a convo while someone reads a letter and just, you know, sod. Oh, yeah, this is happening, kind of thing. It's I really like that. Okay. Also joining us today, Francis. Francis, how's the journey so far?
Well, I did actually read the part I missed yesterday, so I'm not coming in completely cold. But there's a lot to like in this play. I mean, like Tamara says, it doesn't feel like a history play. There's a lot more comedy than I was expecting. And it's very varied in terms of pace and the types of scenes. I mean, we've had battle, we've had lots of comedy, and as you say, some rustic scenes. The characters are very vivid. And as you said, Rob, we get to see every strata of society in this play, which I really like, and which I really liked in that version of Richard III we read several weeks ago. Yeah, where the play's going, I couldn't say, apart from the spoiler that we had earlier about Mistress Shaw. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this.
Excellent. Also, was here yesterday, but won't be here for next time. Andrew, how was Hobs for you? Hobs is a...
I enjoyed him. He was quite a fun character to play. And it was quite a light, bringing a bit of lightness, I think, although some of his lines were quite serious regarding the king. But I think it was bringing a bit of lightness into the piece. I think it was very different playing that to playing Spicing yesterday. He was very much get out the way, I'm here sort of person, whereas this one was more beguiling and kinder type of person. He wanted to give his heart to the king, I think, in a way, to be his friend, and he's inviting him round for dinner. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that what happens with the king and Hobs when they meet again in the house. So I'm going to have a listen to that for tomorrow's recording. But he's a nice character. There's a lot of comedic elements, I think, to him, and also the other characters throughout this part of the play as well. And there was yesterday. I think it shows the aristocracy, so to speak, of the royalty, and then it brings in the more working class man as Hobs and the miller, which we did today, and some of the other characters, and Falconbridge and Spicing and their men and the Huntsman are more just above Hobs, I suppose, and the miller. So yeah, there's a little I'm trying to think of the word, scale. So like the top people, the middle and the bottom. And I think that's really written well in this piece. Yeah, and it's exciting. It's quite exciting piece as well, just to see what's going to happen. I think it's a page turn. If you were reading the play, it's a page turner, rather than sometimes you can read plays and you think, oh no, I'm halfway through this and it's not going anywhere. Whereas this one's got quite an energy to it and it's going forward. So yeah, that's what I feel.
Yeah, the play is sort of, to a degree, working its way down through the estates, isn't it? It's we started with the king, then we moved to the Lord Mayor and the apprentices, and now we sort of down to the proper working men out there in the country as well. So we're going from a London-centric focus to something that's slightly further out and more rural and. Yeah, so it's really painting a whole world that I'm really engaging with nicely. I mean, the thing is, the problem is, especially when looking at it structurally, is that we're looking at this in little chunks, and we're only halfway through the play, and actually getting a handle on what the play is doing overall is at the moment we're still too much deep in the trenches to get a sense of what this play is doing overall. Especially it's in two parts, so. What's it setting up for next time as well is the other question for when we get to that. Helen, you're here for the duration. How are you finding it so far? Thoughts?
I like it very much. I think it's showing enormous signs of not being written for noble patronage in the way some plays are. But it is showing its signs of being for London, which is nice because it's not what I'm used to, and it shows what I've been missing. I was slightly worried at first about Henry VI, with reason, as it turns out, because the man's dead. But
he's not well.
Nobody seemed to. The thing is that Henry VI was to an extent regarded as a martyr. he was revered. I mean, the first two Tudors certainly tried to have him canonized. And there so far doesn't seem to be anywhere anybody who is in favor of him except Falconbridge, and that was, one got the impression, not because he thought anything of Henry VI, but because he was a means to an end. This did worry me. It's worrying me less now, because what we've got, I think, is the king as if Hal hadn't changed, Prince Hal hadn't changed in Famous Victories on becoming king. He carried on in the old way, even after he'd become king.
Yeah, there's well, actually, we have made the argument that he didn't really change very much in Famous Victories as well. But in principle he does. It is interesting, the parallels that seem to be flying here with Famous Victories, with Jack Straw, which we're looking at the end of the week. In lots of characters' names and crossovers, and yet the city being venerated, you know, this is very for London, and that sort of comes out of elements of Jack Straw as well. You know, it does seem to be a very deliberate thread that this play's doing some great stuff with. Alan, final thoughts?
I mean, there's some very well drawn characters, there's some very well written scenes, but for me at the moment, and I haven't read ahead, it's just not hanging together as a piece. Now, it may be that there is some threads drawing together in the remainder of the piece, but for me, I think if I'd been sitting in a theatre watching this, I would be probably getting somewhat shuffly and bored, because it just isn't engaging me, and you know, that's an honest reaction to it.
Was it the moment we left London?
Well, that did seem to be a bit of a screeching U-turn. You know, you've got what's obviously a major disconnect in place, a major disconnect in time. The fact that Edward turned up almost like a Deus Ex Machina when all of the exciting bits in London had finished. You know, having not been present for any of the work that needed doing, and as I say, it's just not getting me engaged.
Well, I thought that the fact that he wasn't there for all of that was actually quite clever. I mean, it may just be for a doubling reason, but it's just that thing. He is absentee, and he isn't interested in being a king. He's interested in enjoying the stuff you get with being a king, but he has nothing to do with the suppression of the rebels. And then we get to here. I think it's a good point to point out that, you know, how the evening flows, and of course with a modern performance, if we're doing this at live in a theatre, we also have to decide at some point very soon where we'd put an interval. You know, we haven't reached that point yet, perhaps, or maybe we have. Maybe this is the point where we put an interval. But I think also it's interesting how many scenes we've actually had in this play. I mean, you know, in theory we've just done, as one editor has put it, 13 scenes, but you could look at it as either considerably more scenes, or for that matter considerably fewer, but they're quite long, but they're also really engaging and move quite fast. So the sequence with Hob is, you know, is labeled here as 3 scenes, but it could actually be thought of as maybe 5 or 6 in terms of units of action. So you've got, you know, bits with the Queen, bits with some courtiers, bits with Hob and the King, bits with some huntsmen. So it might actually have a lot more momentum, even though the chats seem quite gentle with Hob. That might not be, because the King's being very pushy. And actually, there's something about that I'm really interested in workshopping, precisely who Hobs is, because I think there's a lot of options there with how dynamically he functions. I mean, we're talking about him maybe being a clown's part, but I'm actually now thinking, how funny is he? Is he a clown?
Not very.
No. You know, he could be very deadpan, and there are sort of verbal jokes that sort of exist in there, and maybe you want to hand it to the funny man, but there's actually something quite serious and about what the play is doing with him that I think is quite interesting. Lois, final thoughts.
Right. Well, you know, in some ways, this play reminds me in its context of one of those Acheborn trilogies where I think it's the Norman Conquests, where each play is set in a different room. And when characters enter in one play, if you've seen the other play, you know they've come from something completely different, because the problem that this writer, who might have been Heywood, had was that there had already been a lot of other plays dealing with the same historical period. And I think there seems to have been a rule in printing, at any rate, in publishing, that you were not supposed to publish anything that would ruin the sales of something else that had been published. And I think that's one reason why the title page of this play states so specifically what the subject matter is going to be, and that it is not going to be the same as the subject matter in some other plays that deal a great deal, for example, with Henry VI and the problems of his reign, and with his murder, and, you know, a lot of things that we're familiar with. It really is happening, you could say, in a different room. And I think the whole play gives something of that feeling. Now, I like the play very much. I think it's extremely ambitious. The author's got this very large canvas, and he seems to be doing quite a good job of filling it and keeping you in mind of one bit when he moves to another. I think it'd be quite difficult to do those battle scenes justice, but fun to try, and fun to get the kind of country atmosphere, you know, just through the characters, following on from the London atmosphere.
I mean, the battle scenes are both a sort of blessing and a curse, aren't they? They, you know, they could be fantastic. They could also just be some people wandering left and right every so often.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing is, the battle scene shouldn't interfere with the flow of the actual dialogue scenes that are going in between them, because it does feel like that whole sequence wants to be a fast montage of scenes. So it might be that there's fighting going on around them. There's huge potential there dramatically. I think that's what I'm really liking about this play, is the potential for every scene and for the overall shape of the show. And talking about shape, I'll come back to that in a moment. Lynn, final thoughts?
Yes. Well, what I have been struggling with over the past couple of days is this play condemning Edward or not? Is it judging him negatively for being a sensualist, for being shallow, for being unserious? And by the end of today, I kind of came to the conclusion that maybe that's the wrong question, because the problem of royal personality is central to a lot of history plays. If you look at something like the Woodstock play, I mean, we don't necessarily hate Richard II, he's just a terrible king. Or Marlowe's Edward II, where you know, you have to have compassion for how the poor man suffers, but he's unfit to lead. So maybe basically this is one of the things that's going on, of the many things that are going on in this play, is just sort of, we're looking at the problem of royal personality. You kind of can't help liking Edward. He's a fun guy. He'd be a really fun guy to hang out at the pub with. But is he fit to lead is a much muddier question. So that's one thing history plays are really interested in, is the problem of royal personality that's baked in to the hereditary monarchy model.
Yeah, it's interesting that I think one of the elements that why Edward doesn't feel like a king is not just how he acts or doesn't act, because, you know, he hasn't had that much official king stage time. You know, he's not terrible at any point during those. It's just he's obviously, we don't have an extended court. We don't have these, you know, courtiers really plotting or doing, you know, there's none of that sort of action where king does something, exits, and then courtiers are going, well, I'm not sure that was a good idea. Shall we rebel? Yeah, maybe we will. Which we get in Woodstock and others. So it's that sense of we briefly see elements of a court, but it's two courtiers and his mother and his wife, and that's it. There's no sense of a royal household or a royal thing going on around this in the way that and the play doesn't seem at the moment to be very interested in that. So it's really interesting what this play is not interested in, as well as what the play is interested in. Eric, I see a hand.
This is probably I don't know if it's irrelevant, but because Lynn started talking about royal personality, it made me think of Oedipus for some reason, which is obviously this is the example of the king that is basically going to suffer because of who he is and what he's doing, rather than and not listening to XYZ. Obviously in Oedipus, not in this play. But it's kind of, it can date back. The prototype for all of this can date back substantially, sort of, in that sense, I think.
The moment you said Oedipus, I was suddenly going, no, not the Duchess. No.
Although, royal weddings and...
Yeah. Also on a structural point about how you might stage this, if you were doing both parts and you were trying to present it, it was interesting. I can't remember the name of the play. It was Robert Lepage extravaganza. It was on at the Barbican, and it was an all-day job. It was one of these things that was 9-10 hours long. It had appalling technical problems. I spent most of the play watching us just to the extreme left, as I recall. In the seating, and you could see into the wings, and you could just basically see the stage crew just going, what bit are we on? And I was just watching the stage hands trying to manhandle this enormous set. Anyway, but what was interesting about that was the play was broken up into about 9 pieces, and you sat down through 45 minutes, an hour, sometimes less, sometimes longer, across a day, and then you had a main lunch, and then you had maybe an evening meal as well. And by God, was that the charge of the Light Brigade to get first to the queue for dinner. My God, I've never seen so many middle-class people running across the Barbican concourse. It was hilarious. I, of course, was quite fleet of foot at the time, so I was able to watch them from ahead. Anyway, the point of this lengthy story, I'm going to find out it wasn't the Barbican now, and it was somewhere else, and it was a totally different play. But the point of this lengthy thing is you could watch the play broken up into lots of chunks over a very long period of time, and it didn't feel tiring in the way that having watched other lengthy plays with just one interval and thing, and then a big break and thing. And that actually, looking at the way it's structured so far, we've had 1 hour long chunk that's quite exciting, maybe put an interval in. Now this sort of woodland idyll as a separate episode, depending on where this is going now, for 50 minutes. And that actually the two plays together could be presented as quite a broken up event show thing, in a way that treating it as part 1 and part 2 maybe does it a disservice. That's just me spitballing at the moment, but it's a thought. And until we get further, we probably can't go much further on that. Lynn?
It does have a kind of soap opera or mini-series feel to it, parallel storylines going. So breaking it up into episodes, I think, would actually work really well, and would maybe help audience members like Alan, who is not having an enjoyable experience with it because it feels so incohesive, that maybe having episodes that were more coherent in themselves but separate somewhat from each other might make it kind of easier for the audience to engage with.
Yeah, it does feel like we're in the middle of a bottle episode now, doesn't it? That, and now randomly we're going to have an episode of King Edward in the Woods. And then we'll return to the main plot later once we've discovered more about his soul. I might be. Again, overplaying
Was that on EastEnders?
No. Anyway, so we have 2 more sessions on Edward IV, Part 1 to go this week. We will return with many of these faces and some new faces over the course of the rest of the week. All that remains is to thank everyone, Greg, for helping prepare the text, and all the readers, and goodbye. Bye. Ta-ta. Safe journey. Don't be a stranger.